Hey everyone, thanks for coming to my video. Today we are going to start a pretty major renovation on this 1920s character house. We are going to excavate the front and backyard and tie in a whole new addition from foundation to roof. I look forward to getting into this video. Thanks for sticking through it. It's going to be a long one. The first task at hand was to remove the master bedroom addition. It was done sometime in the 80s and began sinking and splitting off of the house. The home was built in the early 1900s and had some very cool craftsman detail all around the house. Measures were taken to save and replicate these details in the new design. Removing the rear addition was the first task at hand. We would eventually be framing a similar structure in its place, but with a basement below and a proper foundation. When we started demoing the exterior walls, the stucco added a lot of weight to them. It made it difficult to break the walls into smaller pieces. We then started removing the subfloor, which was a breeze. It wasn't glued down, and it was minimally nailed. Our materials arrived, and we got them craned into the backyard. We now had the subfloor peeled off the house, and all that was left is the freestanding deck that used to come off the master bedroom. Next was to start digging a hole into the existing basement, where we would eventually add a stairway to upstairs, a bathroom, bedroom, and an office. We started digging into the entrance while the excavators began digging out the foundation and sunken patio in the backyard. Until the operator discovered a buried oil tank in the backyard, which put a pretty big halt in the project while we went through the proper procedures of disposing of it. Until then, we got the rear foundation removed, the front stairs busted out, so we were excited to get rid of that and carry on to some carpentry. This is a non-load-bearing wall separating the kitchen from the living room. These old lath and plaster walls proved to take much more labor than removing a conventional drywall faced wall. We also discovered one of the columns in the front entrance had been badly burnt some decades ago, so we replaced the burnt framing and carried on. Now that the oil tank issue was resolved in the backyard, we began forming our footings. We started a similar process in the front yard. We had about 120 feet of footing in the backyard and about 25 feet in the front. These footings were 18 inches wide by 8 inches deep. After the concrete was placed and troweled, we went around and wet doweled the vertical rebar. The concrete sits overnight and is stripped the next morning. We then began forming the foundation walls, which starts with pinning down a 2x4 to the footing to begin the first side of the wall. Paper face sheets are then nailed to the bottom plate. It's very important to nail the sheets plumb as you go. Eight-inch snap ties are then placed through the holes and held in place with a Burke bracket on the opposite side. A series of straight 2x4s are then snugged between the bracket and the backside of the form ply. It's important to scab a piece between the 2x4 joint to prevent a blowout. I used a 4-foot piece, but they should have been 6 to 8 feet. You also don't want to have a joint land between where your sheet joints are for good practice. Roughly every fourth tie hole has a double long snap tie to accommodate a vertical wailer. These are used to brace to and straighten the walls. Outside walls done. Time to move to the inside. We begin with mirroring the sheets from the outside and sliding the snap ties through the holes. Brackets and 2x4s are then added, just like the outside. Now when the brackets are snugged up, it tightens the wall to a perfect 8 inches and ready to hold some concrete. Concrete was brought to the backyard by a line pump. We poured, vibrated, and troweled about 6 cubic meters that day. The walls sat over the weekend, and the following Monday, we spent the day stripping. While the concrete's still fresh, it's easy to clean off the lumber, which can be reused over and over. However, if the concrete is not cleaned off, it's a pain to try and remove later. After removing the 2x4s and brackets, the sheets break free of the concrete, leaving the ties exposed. I used a metal bar to bend them and then twist them free, breaking them off from the wall. We supported the floor joists with temporary walls as we removed a load-bearing beam from the basement. Once Landon cut out the remaining sections of joists, a new flush beam would be installed with posts at each end. Here we're cutting out the new stairwell opening between the floors. We then got to framing the walls for the downstairs office. Once the walls were done, we started framing the floor system for the master bedroom above.
Front edge of this too,
Yep.
or hey,
Yep.
Jamie,
Yep.
face edge of this, or just on
No,
the.
just the flat.
Hi, Kate. Good. I was thinking about you a little while.
We're now a couple months into this project, and here's what the upstairs floor is looking like. At the front of the house, we're framing up some walls for the new porch, which is going to be about 6 feet off of the house.
To losing.
Here we're up on the roof where we're lining up all the faux fir rafter tails. We're also going to drop the rafters to accommodate a tongue and groove soffit, which is going to match how the existing house was built. After we finished framing and sheeting the rear roof, we moved to the front where we started installing the new trusses and sheeting the roof. Here's the fascia board going up on the back gable end.
That's the tightest joint yet. That's a wrap.
Here's the final deck being applied on the front porch. Here we install a pretty large sliding glass door into the downstairs office.
So if Jeremy comes by, ask him if we can start prepping for a pour, eh? And what I need is great.
I'm taking it up now. You just put some light on. Yeah.
Next, we would go around and replace all the existing windows. So here were a couple stairs we formed up to the walkway, which would go around the whole backyard, side of the house, out to the front.
Nothing. What? Too many good scenes. I can't stop filming you. Alright.
After all the forms were set and the rebar was placed, the concrete was poured and finished. Next, we started building the fir knee braces, which are a decorative detail which go up underneath the soffit on the gable ends of the building. We started milling down all the 2x2s needed for the balusters for the front handrails. This started with ripping down fir 2x6s, cutting them all to length, routering each corner, and sanding them.
That's too bad. Remember to do the other one on this side.
As we were finishing up the handrails, the floor finishers came in and worked their magic with this old floor. It was covered in linoleum adhesive, and they brought it back to life. So here I'm reworking this linen closet that was a part of the original woodwork. Next, Landon is reworking a fur door. These both turned to be a lot of work, but were pretty fun to see them come together, having to mix and match whatever wood we could use, and they ended up opening and closing great.
It's over here. Yes.
And here's a nice stair reveal on the front entrance after we got the stain done. So we're back inside to do some trim work. Here we're doing some fir wainscoting to match the existing style in the rest of the living room.
Well, this looks alright. This looks alright. You have to put all these pieces in, but it looks good. Right? Yeah. I really, I've always not liked putting these closets in, but.
So here's my final walkthrough. This was a big push. We got the cleaner in this day. We had a bunch of like last minute trim work we were doing. And it's winter time, so it's pretty dark out, but it's probably 6 or 7 p.m. But from the last couple days, we had a bunch of cabinet work, countertop work, tile work, electrical, staining. A lot of this trim was happening. It was quite the gong show. And next thing you know, it's ready for moving into. And the master bathroom here. A lot of nice lighting accents, really nice shower. Tile guy did a great job. pretty crazy thinking about the first day being in here and doing the demo and just how much more opened and how more tied together all the trim is. With the interior done, all we had left was stucco and paint. We moved on to our next job, and we kept swinging by every couple weeks to see how the progress was coming. This was one of our biggest jobs for sure. I learned a lot. I couldn't have done it without the help from my dad and Landon, who started with us on this job, and now he's been with us for over a year, and he's turned into an awesome carpenter. Thank you for sticking through my video. I look forward to making more in the future, so stay tuned and happy building.